What happens when the world turns its back on you and God seems silent? Today, we begin one of the most heart-wrenching and inspiring stories you'll ever hear. Amaka was just like many of us, working, surviving, trying her best to hold on to faith. But life crushed her. It pushed her into the streets, and almost into death. She cursed God. But what happened next will shake your soul and renew your faith. Welcome to Dangerous African Confessions. If you've ever questioned your faith in your darkest hour, this story is for you.
I didn't always hate God. I used to love Him with all my heart. I grew up in a Christian home. My mother prayed for me every night, and my grandmother was a woman of great faith. But life has a way of pulling the ground from under your feet. And when it does, your faith can crack like a mirror that falls from a high place. My name is Amaka. And this is my story. My life started to fall apart at 28. I had just lost my job at a small logistics company where I worked as a front desk officer. They say life can change in a blink. But for me, it didn't blink. It stared, cold and unblinking, as it watched me fall. I used to be fine. Not rich. Not poor. Just fine. I worked the front desk at a small logistics firm in Lagos. Woke up early, wore my thrift store office skirts with pride, and thanked God for each small thing. I even had a notebook where I wrote prayer points, things like, Lord, make me strong enough to help my brother finish school. Father, give me favor to grow in this company. Lord, may I never be stranded. That last one, it still echoes in my head sometimes. I remember kneeling on the small mat in my room, barely big enough to hold my knees. I would whisper my dreams to heaven. Lord, open doors. Let my hands be useful. Bless my boss so he can bless me. I fasted. I paid my tithe with joy, even when it meant skipping Sunday rice. I believed God was watching. That He had a plan. But when my boss started making moves on me, everything shifted. I said no. Politely. Then firmly. Then coldly. And just like that, he stopped calling me reliable. My shifts were cut. The HR woman couldn't even look me in the eye when she handed me the envelope. Company restructuring, she said. Restructuring. That's how my life unraveled. The next 3 months were a blur. I sold my blender, my fan, my good shoes. But Lagos doesn't care if you're trying. My landlord gave me a final warning. I begged him for time. I made him understand that I would pay. But he said no. Weeks later, I came back from a failed interview and found my door padlocked. My clothes, my certificates, even my toothbrush, scattered in a black bag on the floor. I sat there for hours. Just sat. Until the sky turned purple and mosquitoes started singing around me. That first night, I slept in a kiosk. I crawled into myself like a snail, hugging my bag like it had oxygen in it. I woke up every now and then, my ears tuned to every footstep. I was afraid someone would steal my bag. Or worse, try to touch me. The next night, I went to the back of a fuel station. The man there saw me and told me that I better find my way before police come. I walked aimlessly until morning, no food, no water, just walking. I used to be Amaka who bought akara and pap on Sunday mornings. Now I was just someone. I remember on the 4th night, something inside me snapped. I had been praying silently for days. Even in my pain, I remember saying things like, God, I know you see me. Maybe you're testing me. Maybe you're planning a big breakthrough. But that night, after being chased away from under a shed by a man with a cutlass, I sat under a bus stop sign and looked up. The stars were out. And they looked so peaceful. I wasn't. I looked into the sky and said out loud, God, are you even real? If you are, why am I like this? Why did you let them throw me out like garbage? Why am I starving while your children are eating communion? I bit my lip until it bled. Not to feel pain, but to stop myself from screaming. That night, I folded my arms and told God, you failed me. And that was the last prayer I prayed for weeks. I didn't want to hear about God anymore. I hated him. Because the God I knew would not watch his daughter starve, stink, and sleep next to a gutter. That was the beginning of my darkness. But what I didn't know was that heaven wasn't silent. It was watching. And something was coming. But before the light came, I had to break completely. People think being homeless is just about not having a roof. But what they don't know is, it's more about losing your dignity, your voice, your value. Being homeless, as a woman, is a different kind of horror. You see, my second week on the street felt like I was living in a body that had no shield. I hadn't bathed in days. My body began to itch. I started smelling myself. And that smell, let me tell you, it's the smell that tells people to look away. The smell that says, you are less. I would sit in corners during the day, hoping no one would recognize me. Hoping the sun wouldn't be too hard on my face. You learn the sounds of the street. The hiss of someone about to curse you out. The shuffle of someone stepping away because you stink. You learn to shrink. So you don't offend people just by existing. The worst part. The danger. As a woman, you're never safe. I couldn't sleep at night unless I was somewhere people couldn't see me, under an old dam-fo, behind kiosks, beneath broken stairways. But even then, they found me. One night, 2 boys passed by and one said, this one fine. If I catch her alone, I go collect. I didn't breathe until I heard their voices disappear. You live on edge. Your ears stay open. And even your dreams become threats. Hunger is not just a growling stomach. Hunger is a demon that whispers shame into your ear. I once begged a food vendor for the leftover rice water, the starchy water they pour away after cooking. She looked me dead in the eye and said, carry your bad luck away. That day, I sat by a gutter and cried until my head hurt. I asked myself, Amaka, is this what you've become? There was a market I used to pass, Ajigona. I would watch people eating suyo, gala, boiled corn. The smell would make me dizzy. Sometimes I would pretend to tie my shoe near a buka, just to inhale the soup. That was my lunch. You know what hurts the most? The way people look through you. Like you don't exist. Like the person sitting on the sidewalk isn't even human. One woman walked past me and clutched her bag. Another dragged her child away like I was a plague. But I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't mad. I was just broken. And somehow, in this city full of churches, no one had room for me. I remember a man preaching with a microphone on the roadside. God will bless you. God will lift you. And I sat there, my clothes damp with yesterday's sweat, thinking, did your God forget me? Why are you shouting blessings at people who already have food, when there's someone starving right beside you? I stopped listening to preachers. I stopped hoping. Bitterness became my companion. I stopped being Amaka. I became invisible. There was a night I couldn't find any safe place to lay down. I walked from mile 2 to Oshodi. My legs were swollen. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. That night, I whispered to myself, if I don't die, then God must be playing games. I wasn't praying. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was empty. Just empty. That emptiness stayed with me. Until the day something unexpected, something divine, came walking toward me. I didn't know it yet. But I was about to meet the woman who would save my life. That night, the rain came like it had a grudge. No shelter. No covering. Just sky and cold and darkness. I found a spot near an abandoned kiosk and pulled a torn nylon sheet over myself. It was barely enough to cover my shoulders. My body trembled. My belly screamed. My eyes were dry. I couldn't even cry anymore. I had cried everything out. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "God, are you there?" No answer. "If you're real, let me die tonight." That was my prayer. Not for help. Not for food. Just to be gone. You see, I used to talk to God like a friend. But that night, I cursed him. I told him he was wicked. That he abandoned me. That all those church songs were lies. You are too faithful to fail me. Then why was I sleeping in my own sweat and tears, begging for air? I turned my face to the wall and called into myself. And I said, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm okay with that. I had given up on hope. On people. On heaven. And somehow, I woke up. Not because I was strong. Not because I deserved to. But because someone had come looking for me. I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Sister, are you okay?" I opened my eyes. A woman knelt beside me, her own eyes filled with tears. Her name was Mrs. Adefilek. I didn't know her. But she knew pain. She said God had woken her up early to return to the same spot she passed the night before. "I don't know why," she said. "But I couldn't sleep. I had to come back." She took me in her car. I was shaking, embarrassed, silent. She gave me food. Clothes. Soap. But more than that, she gave me a bath of love. For the first time in months, someone touched me without fear or disgust. And when she said, "God loves you," I broke. She introduced me to her church. I stayed in a shelter run by their women's ministry. I was enrolled in tailoring training. For the first time, I slept on a real bed. Ate warm food. Laughed. Cried. And started to believe again. It didn't happen in a flash. Healing takes time. But each stitch I made in tailoring class, each hug from a church auntie, each worship song that didn't make me angry anymore, was one step closer to being whole again. I don't know why God waited. Maybe I had to be emptied before he could fill me. I used to think God lived in stained glass and pulpits. Now I know. He walks the gutters. He waits in shelters. And sometimes, he kneels beside you in the dirt. I now run a small tailoring shop. I rent a one-room apartment. I eat every day. But more than all of that, I live. I smile again. I pray again. I hope again. If you're listening to me and you've hit rock bottom, please know that rock is not your grave. God is not intimidated by your anger or your dirt. He's not waiting for perfection. He's just waiting for you to breathe again. If he found me under a bridge in Lagos, he will find you too.
Amaka's story is proof that God does not abandon his own. Even when we are angry, even when we walk away, he still comes for us. This is not just about homelessness. It's about redemption. About being found when you've given up on being seen. If you've ever felt forgotten, remember this story. Share it. Comment below. And if you need prayer, just write, "Pray for me," and our team will stand with you. Don't forget to subscribe. Your story isn't over.